A trip shrouded in secrecy ends in tragedy and more questions. On Friday, March 3rd, a video of 4 African Americans being ambushed and taken when they entered the Mexican city of Matamoros was posted and went viral on Twitter. The incident had mouths dropping, as not only did this occur in broad daylight in front of several witnesses, but the witnesses watched the horror in silence and possible fear that they would meet the same fate. Soon, varying reports were coming in that this was the work of a Mexican cartel, that rival factions were responsible, and that the 4 Americans were erroneously thought to be Haitian smugglers who interfered on the cartel's turf. But then, reports started surfacing that instead of 4, there were actually 5 Americans who were just on a road trip to support one of the friends who was scheduled to undergo a tummy tuck. Latavia Washington McGee, 33-year-old mother of 6, was traveling to Matamoros to have a tummy tuck done. And even though her mother, Barbara Burgess, warned her of the possible danger in Mexico, Latavia was sure that she'd be okay, because a previous medical procedure in Matamoros the year before had gone well. Latavia enlisted the help of 4 others to share the over 24-hour drive from South Carolina to Matamoros. 33-year-old Shaid Woodard, her cousin, whom she considered her brother because as teenagers they were raised together, and childhood friends Eric James Williams, also in his 30s, who told his wife he was going to help 2 friends, although she wasn't aware he'd be traveling to Mexico. Zendale Brown, 28, who also didn't tell his mother that he'd be going to Mexico. But, according to his sister, whom he did share the information with, he had misgivings regarding the possible danger they could face and said that they shouldn't be going down there. And Cheryl Orange, Latavia's best friend, who had no idea that they were even headed to Mexico for the procedure.
Latavia is my best friend. She hit me up and asked me to join her, to accompany her in a trip to Brownsville, Texas for cosmetic surgery. And we began the road trip. We left out on Thursday and traveled to Texas. Once I got there, I was then informed that her procedure was being done across the border. In that event, we were just arriving in Brownsville, Texas at Studio 6, and I didn't have proper identification, so I couldn't join her to go across to the border, which left me back at the hotel.
The 5 rented a white minivan with North Carolina plates and started their drive from South Carolina to Matamoros, Mexico on Thursday, posting Facebook stories of their road trip along the way. When they reached Brownsville, Texas, they dropped Cheryl off at a Motel 6 with the luggage of the 3 men. It was around 8 a.m. in the morning, and the plan was that the others would continue on to Matamoros, drop Latavia off for her surgery, and then return to the motel to wait with Cheryl, who was expecting the 3 men to return in 15 minutes. But plans went awry, because what should have been a journey of less than 20 minutes from Brownsville, Texas to Matamoros stretched to over 3 hours when the others got lost while trying to locate the medical clinic. So they reached out to the doctor's office for directions. And then, around 11:45, while driving in Matamoros, their vehicle was hit by another van, whose occupants began to discharge shots into the vehicle carrying Latavia and her friends. According to her mother, Latavia said her friends ran from the van and were struck down at the same time. Latavia was thrown into the back of a pickup truck where she sat visibly stunned as her three friends were dragged into the truck beside her. And even as they all were being hauled off in the pickup truck, she knew that two of them were no longer with her. In Brownsville, Texas, Cheryl Orange, exhausted from hours of traveling, took a shower and then fell asleep and didn't awaken until 5 p.m. that evening. She saw that none of her friends had returned, and several hours had passed since the specified 15-minute return time she expected. She hadn't heard from any of them, and when she called their cell phones, she could tell that the phones were off. She checked with the motel clerk and was told her friends had not come back. So she spent the rest of the evening reaching out to her friends' family members and other friends to see if they had heard from anyone in the group. The next morning, she reached out to Brownsville police and told them her friends were missing. According to a case report filed by Brownsville PD, Cheryl appeared worried and nervous when an officer responded to her call that Saturday morning. And he also detected a strong odor of marijuana from her person. She informed police that Latavia and her three brothers had gone to Matamoros so that Latavia could have a surgery. She wasn't sure of the details, but thought it was for a gluteal augmentation and had no information about the clinic where the surgery was being performed. She also informed police that she wouldn't be surprised if her friends had been arrested because they are known to party and use substances. The police then checked local jails to see if any of the friends had been taken into custody, but no other action was taken other than giving Cheryl a phone number to follow up with the criminal investigators on Monday if she hadn't heard from her friends by then. Back in Matamoros, Mexican police were combing the area for clues. They discovered an unresponsive Mexican bystander who caught a stray almost a block and a half away from where the ambush took place. Through video surveillance, they identified the cartel vehicles used in the ambush, and when they discovered the Americans' abandoned white minivan, they contacted U.S. officials who were able to run the plates. Local investigators processed the vehicle and obtained ballistics data, fingerprints, and DNA evidence, while Mexican police from several different agencies teamed up to perform several searches. By Sunday, Latavia's family were worriedly waiting to hear from her, and soon took their search to the internet, where they found the viral video showing 4 Americans being taken, and they were able to identify Latavia as one of the 4 due to her blonde braids and recognizing the green dress she was wearing in one of the Facebook Live stories that were posted. Later that day, the FBI informed Latavia's mother and the families of the other 3 Americans that they had been taken. After days of local authorities searching and being misdirected by the cartel, who was constantly moving the Americans around, and even at one point taking them to a medical clinic to create confusion and avoid rescue efforts. On Monday, March 6, 2023, the FBI publicly offered a $50,000 reward for the return of the 4 Americans, as well as the arrest of those involved in the ambush. The police received an anonymous tip that led them to a cartel stash shack on Tuesday, March 7th, where they heard and saw 2 blindfolded Americans shouting for help, while a guard wearing a tactical vest tried to escape out the back. They were able to rescue Latavia, who appeared physically unharmed, and Eric, who was struck several times in both legs, and recover Shaid and Zindel, who had been wrapped in blankets and plastic bags as they did not survive the initial ambush. The survivors were loaded into an ambulance and given an FBI escort to a hospital in Brownsville, Texas, while their friends were taken to the Matamoros morgue to be released to U.S. authorities following forensic work. On Wednesday, Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said that the people responsible would be punished, adding that while he regretted that it happened in his country and that the U.S. government had every right to be upset, the U.S. media's breathless coverage of the incident showed a double standard, because when Mexicans are harmed, the media goes quiet like mummies. Then, Thursday morning, March 9th, in a surprising and almost unbelievable new development, Mexican police received photos of 5 men lying down on the floor in front of a black pickup truck with Texas plates. The photos also showing a note on the front windshield of the vehicle. The emergency hotline received another anonymous tip that a branch of the Mexican cartel had left a message in downtown Matamoros. When the Mexican police arrived, they found the men who were said to be severely damaged and the note, which apologized to the families of all the victims and basically said, "We have decided to turn over those who were directly responsible in the events, who at all times acted under their own decision-making and lack of discipline against the cartel rules, which include respecting the life and well-being of the innocent." The men were subsequently taken into police custody and charged, but families of the victims say that the apology doesn't dull the pain. And although the cartel may have hoped the public apology would have closed the investigation so they could get back to business, as of Friday, March 10th, Mexican President Lopez Obrador said that the prestige of his country and government is at stake, so they will conduct an in-depth investigation since they have learned that the Americans had a criminal background in the United States. And although her friends do have rap sheets from their past that may have contained charges related to substances, Cheryl Orange wants the world to.
I want the world to leave us alone and stop being mean. I want them to have a heart, because everyone has a past. What happened to her wasn't right. She didn't deserve it.